How's good, everyone? Wayne the Known here, and welcome back to another episode of Geeking Out, where we basically discuss everything nerd and geek related. I'm joined here with Chris Okawa for another episode of Get to Know That Actor. First off, Chris, how are we doing today? I know over there it's already like what, 4 o'clock, I believe, 2 o'clock over there.
2 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's all a blur, but yeah, it's late afternoon on a Friday. Can't complain. It's been a great week, and just another week in paradise, as they say.
Oh,
But I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
oh no, of course. So for those who may not know, Chris is a voice actor, and I'm also from believe you are a sound editor, from what I seen and
hmm
heard.
Yeah, I'm a sound engineer as well. I've been a supervising sound engineer on a couple features and short films and mixed and mastered, music for people and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's been really fun. I've always been like very like tech-minded guy. I like gear. I'm a gearhead. I actually after this I'm picking up a new microphone at the mailbox and I'm super excited.
Nice.
So yeah, I work on both sides of the glass, as they say.
Nice. So before we talk about acting, I want to know, how did you come about doing the whole sound engineering thing? Because I
Mhm.
know like actors and everything, they have like not just to do acting, but they do like directing, they do art, they do like a whole bunch of stuff. So how did you get into
Right.
like the sound department and everything?
Yeah, I think it was started out because I was having to produce my own stuff and produce my own demos because I started out right out of college and I'd spent all my money, of course, on college and that education. So I didn't have a lot of extra money for external stuff. So I kind of had to DIY. I plugged in so many hours, beating my head against the desk, watching tutorials, reading books, studying different people's work and people when I moved out to New York, the indie scene, everyone was on a similar shoestring budget. And I got connected with some different directors and they connected me to referred me to their friends that, to mix their stuff. And that's kind of how it worked. I run my studio Cricket Sound, but I've never worked for like an external, studio that runs like does anime ADR, animation stuff like that to be clear. But I have done, ADR capture and mix for a feature and for a couple features actually. And so yeah, it was a fun journey. It was just basically a lot of sweat equity and I have ADHD, so I love repetitive sounds. So I love to like hear stuff looped. I'm just quirky like that, and so it was kind of this match made in heaven. Listen, like, all right, I'm mixing this impact sound, because I also really have a passion for sound design. So like I think in another life I could have been like a Foley artist, and had like a Foley studio and done sound effects for movies. I just always really dig that, how creative those folks are.
Oh,
So I've done some stuff of that as well. So it's a little bit of out of necessity from the budgets, and then just having a lot of time on my hand and a passion for it.
nice. And like you said, it's good to have connections just as long as you don't abuse those connections too.
Yeah, I mean it's true with any type of relationship, right? It's just essentially that is what a connection is a relationship, and uh, approaching it accordingly, I think, is the most responsible way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so you said you moved to New York and doing all this. What was it like starting out in New York, getting your studio and everything all set up?
Yeah, it was. I think I would have a lot of anxiety about it if I had known more at the time, because I moved out to New York in year two of my voice acting career. I was also pursuing stage acting primarily at the time, or at the same
Nice.
time actually, because I was audition. I think it was like every day I was auditioning for it for voiceover stuff still. However, we didn't pick an apartment that was necessarily conducive to voiceover recording. We were in this pre-war apartment with 12-foot ceilings, all plaster walls, wooden floors,
And
right?
so
You can
expensive too,
already
I imagine.
yeah, so you can already imagine the echoes that would occur in that space. And then in the trial and error of my learning curve, I got these diffusers, and diffusers, yeah, they because I saw them in pictures of other studios, and it's like, yeah, that's a tool that you can use. It's basically, for folks that don't know, is like basically a honeycomb of these little cubbies that are 1 inch by 1 inch in like a square shape or a hexagonal shape, and it diffuses the sound. The sound echoes in there and spreads out. But if you just have a giant diffuser and like some little bits of bobs of sound treatment, it's gonna create even more chaos. So um, I ended up ultimately recording just two big projects in that setup, and it just took everything I had to treat that room appropriately. One was number 24 for Funimation, and that was in 2020, and then it's my anime debut, and EDF World Brothers was my console video game debut in that same year. So I like had it was just this crazy collection of diffusers and blankets and pillows and everything put up strategically in this room that was not designed to capture sound. And yeah, every subsequent place that we lived, we picked it based on where the sound studio would go, how everything would work out. But yeah, moving to New York, I overlooked plenty of things in that first apartment. That's long story short.
I mean, yeah, and I feel like when you're doing this, like your first, like when I first moved into my apartment, speaking of like, okay, where's the office studio gonna go? Where
Right,
what has like
right.
has the best condensed sound so it doesn't like
Hmm.
echo? Because these old apartments, like this place used to be a hotel back in the 60s,
Oh,
so like you said, it's like where's like the least amount of sound going to travel? And I imagine
right.
that was like a hard thing to find because not only do you do the sound engineering, but you're also doing the voice acting as well. And I imagine
Yeah.
you do like a lot of yelling in some of your roles
Oh,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Every single one. Yeah. It's got to get loud. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. So was the sound engineering, was that before the voice acting or was that during the voice acting?
It was in service of the voice acting, and then was like something that supported the voice acting as well, as far as like income and like doing side jobs and stuff like that. I got into mixing like kind of like basic kind of first timers demos, like really affordable demos in those early years. And as I grew and as I learned, I was able to scale up that part of my business, and I still make demos for people and fully master and engineer those. So yeah, it was basically a hybrid situation. There were times where I was working primarily as a sound engineer. There were times where I was working primarily as a voice actor.
Nice. So what goes into sound engineering, like making the demos and everything? It's like I've always
Yeah.
heard about it, but I've like how someone's like sound engineer and they make demos, but what is the process that goes into making a demo, whether it be, yourself making a demo or making a demo for someone else?
Yeah. So it depends on the genre. Every, demo genre is a little bit different. I specialize in interactive demos. So those are like video game demos, and something that I really prize in our style and what I think, what I like to hear in an interactive demo is, um, uh, I like to hear a story that starts in medias res. It starts in the middle. It's not hand holding us. It's environmental. It immerses us, but it's not prescriptive. It's not like, I'm an evil scientist and now I will drink this potion, because that's not really how people talk in games, right? And so I try and make the scenes one for one with the genres, the specific types of games people want to work in. And that's a really fun challenge. So there's the capture element. So I'm making sure I'm working with talent that have professional home studios that can give me audio that I can really work with. Um, I There's the sound design element, so either creating sound effects or mixing and matching sound effects or pulling from our something like 40,000 sound effect database that we now have, and then licensing music or scoring or any kind of instrumental that'll be really like in service of the scene. And again, that has to match the soundtrack style of the game that we're following, because you don't want to do a scene that's inspired by or in the style of The Last of Us that has like a Looney Tunes type horn section behind it, right? So so it's a bit of a puzzle, and that I really love doing. I really love that corner of my work, because my engineer side really comes to life, and I get to kind of burn the midnight oil, really rolling up my sleeves and building a simulated version of a game, which is something that we all love. So it's like, yeah, it's like I kind of like get to work on a game for a few days, which is fun.
And someone who voices in games, I'm sure it's nice to have that sound engineering experience as well, because then you'll know
Mm.
how to go about the character and everything. For like example, I could be butchering this. Is it Hadriel or Hadriel from
That's $1 million question. Actually, they both were. They both work. I've heard Diablo fans call it Hadriel, or Hadriel. And in the game session, we recorded it as Hadriel.
You carry the trophy of a lesser evil. After I sanctify it, you should be able to wield divine strength along with the strength of the demon. Though I warn you, power demands balance. While you wield their essence, you are tethered to the demon it came from. The bond remains unless you cast it off.
And yeah, it works either way. Yeah, so knowing what to put into the mic, I think it does go a really long way. I just finalized audiobook yesterday, and we were doing pickups and voice match for the pickups to be able to insert the corrections into the book. And knowing that, yeah, I got to give them maybe another sentence on the top end and maybe two sentences afterwards, so that the engineer can kind of have their pick of the litter as to where they want to cut in the patch, as opposed to just giving them the 5 words. That comes from my empathy as an engineer, and knowing how that works. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that project, because we recorded that at Atlas Oceanic, and Alfredo was my engineer, and he had a cigarette break after the session, and yeah, we stood outside the studio and chopped it up, talked about his engineering journey, and talked about sound engineering at large. Yeah, that was very much, I was in that mindset working on that project.
Nice. And I'm sure it's always nice, when you're doing the voice roles, it's always nice to work with the sound engineers because,
Mm.
you get to see it from the other end.
Yes, yeah, truly, and they take such wonderful care of us, and they're such hard workers, and they're so talented, and their file management, and there's all these things that people don't think about, right? They think, I'm just going to put this in there, and they're going to figure it out on the back end. It's a delight to work with engineer, and I hope that engineers like working with me due to my engineering background, because my sound studios sound really good, my capture is going to be clean, my equipment's top notch, all that stuff. It really is a conversation when you're a remote actor, such as myself, um, between those two studios, and to have two people that understand the ins and outs of it, the way I hope to and strive to, really helps smooth over the process.
Nice. And speaking of the character Hadriel, you'd be the second person to voice him because I believe the first one was Bill Roper
Bill
for
Roper. Hmm.
Diablo 2. What was that like? Did they have to have you try to get as close to his voice, or did they have like you do your own of the
Yeah.
character?
Proceed, hero, into Terror's lair. Know that Diablo's innermost sanctum is hidden by 5 seals. Only by opening each of these seals can you clear your way to the final battle.
That's a good question. So actually, interestingly enough, Hadriel was a direct offer. So I did not read for Hadriel. I, excuse me, had read for that game for about 4 or 5 years. Like Diablo, I'd read for Diablo since the very, very beginning, Diablo 4. And I'd wanted to be in that game desperately for 4 or 5 years. And so it was this nice kind of culmination of, Andrea Toyas entrusting me with this kind of legacy character of Bill's, Bill, of course, I believe plays Mephisto and plays just a ton of characters in the world of Diablo.
Oh yeah, he has like a long list of
Yeah.
characters, I
So I
believe.
think I just took I hope that I wasn't taking any bread out of Bill's mouth. I don't think I was. He and I were both at SDCC, and I was trying to catch him to say hey, but I wasn't able to find him. But I wasn't able to schedule it. But he's fantastic, and just the most colossal shoes to fill. He not only does he play just so many wonderful legacy characters, but he himself has a legacy as an artist, and it was an honor to step into that moment as Hadriel. Maybe Hadriel comes back in a future property, I don't know. But it was a joy for what it was. And it was actually the second time that I've stepped into a legacy property, I think, in the last couple of years. So I also, not a lot of people know, but I play Arkantos in Age of Mythology Retold. And they don't know because it came out during the strike. And so we had a moratorium on all video game announcements.
Oh,
And so I was doubling Daniel Riordan, who's famously in Elder Scrolls or Skyrim, and it was that was a one for one. We had to recreate every single line of Daniel's, but using modern technology,
oh,
and modern reads. So that was a lot of fun. It was kind of like karaoke,
okay.
but with an incredible legacy actor. So yeah, I owe a couple different roles to wonderful actors that paved the way before me.
Yeah, I remember hearing about the strike. I think a good example of the video game strike was Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 when the cast was voiced by completely different people that
Mm,
some people never even heard of or heard of once because you can hear the difference. And I remember that was like during the strike where like a lot of voice actors like yeah no and everything. What was that like for you voicing during the strike? If
yeah.
you could share that.
Yeah, for sure. So like during the strike, I mean, they're just what we projects had to be signed on the IMA agreement for us to be cleared to work on them. Um, uh, and so if a project you're working on, didn't, then it was kind of frozen. You find yourself at this crossroads. I got very fortunate. There wasn't really anything that I was working on that was unsigned that I, got replaced on or anything like that. I was able to work a little bit during the strike, but not a ton. I was passing on tons and tons and tons of new auditions. For example, like that Dune game that came out. There's a lot of roles in that I would have loved to have read for. Um, but yeah, due to the constraints of the strike and my standing in solidarity with fellow union members, I didn't. And but the thing is too, it took like a bit of faith too, because you see these huge opportunities come up, and you potentially strain these relationships with these studios, and you have to trust it on when you come out on the other side of it, because now we're, as of a couple weeks ago, officially 12 months outside of the strike, after
God, a year already, huh? That's
yeah,
insane.
yeah, so a
That's
year has
that's
passed
insane.
since it,
That's
right,
insane to hear.
flew by. But yeah, it's been a year since the strike resolved, and it's been an exciting year. And I think it just takes a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of faith that what is not yours, and what's for you will find you. That's something that we say a lot at our house, because my wife and I are both actors, and it's like almost like a little prayer in those situations, right, where you have to kind of just trust the process and do the right thing.
Oh no, wholeheartedly. And kind of back to the voice of the legacy characters. I imagine it's not always easy trying to replicate the original, voice of a character that was voiced,
Mm,
t 10 plus years, because
mhm.
you can hear the difference depending on the character, and sometimes
Right.
like, oh, is that the same voice actor?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. With Age of Mythology, I took a bunch of screenshots of the YouTube comments, because what had happened was there was a beta testing voice for Arkantos, and they went in a new direction with a more localized Greek sound. And I personally for the record, I thought that it sounded awesome. I thought that our contest sounded awesome. But the community, there's a lot of folks that are traditionalists and they have a nostalgia for the game, and they hear these voice uh prompts so frequently in the game that they're attached to Daniel Riordan's performance. So they brought me in to match that. And what's funny is, because I didn't announce it and don't talk, get asked about it very often or talk about it very often, a lot of people still believe that Daniel did it. They're like, Daniel, oh, so glad they got Daniel back in the booth.
Fighting old battles again?
Yes, old enemies. I still see them here.
You have won more battles for Atlantis than can be counted, faced opponents no other man dared fight.
That was long ago. Today, Atlantis' enemies live only in my dreams. I face feeble pirates now.
Is that what you believe, Atlantean? Atlantis still has enemies, and you are still the one who will face them.
Any who threaten my home or my family will soon have a place in my dreams.
Fighting old battles again?
Yes, old enemies. I still see them here.
You have won more battles for Atlantis than can be counted. Faced opponents no other man dared fight.
That was long ago. Today, Atlantis' enemies live only in my dreams. I face feeble pirates now.
Is that what you believe, Atlantean? Atlantis still has enemies, and you are still the one who will face them.
Any who threaten my home or my family will soon have a place in my dreams.
Wow, Daniel. Daniel's never sounded better. No, and so I got the screenshots of me and the director, Mark Hawes, who's just a sensational director. We have a little laugh about that now and then. It's just so funny. It's the project that no one could ever, acknowledge us for.
And that was for Age of Mythology Retold, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out a couple years ago. Yeah.
Okay,
mm-hmm.
I'm definitely have to. I played like I think a little bit of it because I remember it came on Xbox. I didn't get very I didn't get very far. It's like, but
Hard game.
I'm gonna have to, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to like go on YouTube or something and find your voice.
Yeah.
And his voice and like edit in the comparison because now I'm kind of curious.
Yes, and so some people have done some smashes of the two. Yeah, it's very fun. It's very fun, and it's a real compliment to be able to have pulled off that trick.
Oh, I imagine like for any actor who voices. Like Matt Mercer taking over for Leon after Paul Mercier from Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
it's a big mantle to carry, and you want to do it right, and you want to be thoughtful, but you also need to make it your own. There's a lot of balls to juggle.
Oh yeah. Now with voice acting, how did you get into that, and when did you start that journey?
Yeah, so I started my senior year of college. I was doing an audiobook called The Indigo Thief. And I knew I wanted to do audiobooks. That was like my first love with voiceover. I grew up as a kid hopping in my dad's truck, and he'd still have his audiobook on from his work commute playing. They were the Bosch books, not exactly something that a 9-year-old should hear, but he would pause them, as quick as he could, or sometimes I would ask him to leave them on. Or the Dan Brown books were a bit more 9-year-old friendly. But I fell in love that you could play the hero and the villain and the damsel and the castle and the dragon and the narrator. It felt like such a boundless art form. And so my senior year, my best friend in college, my childhood best friend had written a book called The Indigo Thief and asked me to narrate it. It was a tremendous honor. And in order to do that, I had to buy my equipment finally. So it was a good push out of the nest, so to speak. I ended up doing 2 other audiobooks after that and started working in commercials through online casting. And the years rolled on, and eventually I got signed by my agents out in New York, and then I started doing video games. I didn't expect video games to be such a big corner of my life because we grew up, we weren't like playing a lot of video games. We weren't allowed to play a lot of video games. We didn't have any consoles until I was like 13. We had a PlayStation 2, but even then, we only had one TV, so you couldn't exactly have like a Battlefront 2 marathon right on the family TV.
Yeah, no.
Right. So it's been a kind of ironic journey in that way. And I love voiceover for that reason, in that you never know where you're gonna go next. And I was the UFC Fight Night voice for the past two seasons.
Nice.
And you just never know what's gonna be asked of you and where you're gonna get sent next. And that's the true gift, I believe, of this art form.
I mean, and I just pulled up the Indigo Thief. Like the first image that would come up was has the cricket sound right in the corner of the picture.
Yeah, yeah, we were branding really early on. We're like, I know, I know what this is gonna be, and we better plant our seeds soon. So yeah,
I also like the art cover too of
isn't
it
it
with like,
beautiful?
oh, that's so well done.
Thank
Um,
you.
I love it. Um, what was it like doing that audiobook with Jay? I'm not sure how to
J
pronounce the last
budget.
Jay
hmm
Budget. Thank you. What was it like doing
Yeah,
an audiobook with them for that?
yeah. So I mean, Jay is a genius. Jay is so brilliant and works in the tech sector now at a very, very, very high level. uh Great storyteller. What I loved about working on Thief for Jay was that um the main character is very much a young version of him, and I knew that young version of him. We grew up as boys together, so it was really cool to get to embody that character of Kai, and all the colorful characters in that story with all its humor and its vibrancy, because it was personal, and I think the book that I just finished yesterday, recording yesterday, is my return after 10 years away from audiobook recording.
Oh, 10, yeah, that's a
I
long time.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the right book to come back for, and this one again was deeply personal, and so I'm looking forward to how people experience it and what this new chapter of doing more audiobook again looks like for me. I didn't ha- I had a very small studio in our previous place where we lived, and we just moved 2-3 months ago to this place, and I'm in this very nice sized room that has this old wood paneling, and I'm doing it up like the Haunted Mansion. And
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So now I finally have the resources to get back into audiobook and the time and the energy. And so I'm really excited for this kind of audiobook re-debut coming up here. But yeah, Indigo Thief, I couldn't have asked for a better first foray into the art form.
Nice. Now, kind of speaking, I know there's like, over the years, there have been more and more resources open to the public of getting into voiceover work,
hmm
audiobooks, indie projects, stuff like that.
hmm
I myself did one a few years back, which was like something I never would expect to do, but it was a fun little like 3-minute animated short.
Oh, nice.
What kind of advice do you want to give to someone who wants to get into this? And what they should expect when getting into voiceover work, whether it's for a small indie project or for something like an audiobook or commercial.
Yeah. Well, it's that cliche of like voice acting is acting, So anything you do to invest in your acting and your experience of people and telling their stories is going to um, translate to the art form. It will translate to your voice acting. So you don't have to be in voice acting class explicitly to be getting better at voice acting. You could be taking singing lessons. You could be doing scene study, at your local theater, or doing a community theater play or musical, right? All those things point directly back to this art form in their various ways. Outside of that too, I would also encourage people to give themselves time and understand and accept that this is it's a marathon. It really is. And so doing things to give yourself longevity. If you need a survival job, as all of us do, but when you're starting out, if you need a survival job, there's no shame in that. All of us work a bunch of different things, wear a lot
Ooh.
of different hats. And I think whatever you can do to alleviate this sense of like time running out, because that will panic you and it will make your auditions strained and it will make your work subpar. but take advantage of free community resources and be in community with other people that share your dream, and in ways that are non-transactional, not always trying to climb the ladder, but more so just hanging out on the ladder alongside people. I have a group that plays, friend slot video games, and there's another group I'm a part of that does fantasy football. So being in community with other people that share your dream can give you so much fuel, and on top of that, and alleviating that sense of the hourglass running out, and letting yourself just enjoy doing the craft.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree. And I know some people going into, think they're going to make a lot of money. And, I know that's not always the case.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. I think it's like depends on the different genres that you work in, and I think a lot of the pay scales are transparent. If you look up like SAG-AFTRA union voiceover scale pay, or the wonderful GVAA rate guide.com, that can give you insight as to what these different jobs pay. And I'm a big fan of that transparency because, yeah, that's part of people's longevity, right? People got to eat, people got to pay their rent, and everything else is sunshine. So yeah, I really recommend people to temper that story, to just research, yeah, what the rates are of the stuff that you want to get into pay.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree. Let's see. So I imagine when you were starting out, you had your 9 to 5 job because, when I
Hmm.
feel like when people start out, they should also have a job that helps with the income, not for like,
Yes.
to help with better equipment, but also, food, bills, rent, because
Yep.
you need to survive if you're wanting to
Yeah.
do something as big as voiceover work or any type of acting.
Hmm. I started out as a night auditor at a hotel. And I would work from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then I would do my auditions from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then I'd go to sleep. I did that for a year. And then it was my wife was finishing up college because we met in college. I was a year ahead of her. And then we got married and moved out to New York. And in New York, I was a busboy, and then I was a caterer, and then I was an IT guy, and then I was a shoe company HR guy, and then I was a luxury flower shop manager. And that was my final survival job that I had, my final day job I had prior to going full time. And now, even now, I teach and I do appearances and I do signings and stuff. So it is a hustle game all the way to the top. Everyone is a super hard worker and doing a bunch of different stuff. It just changes, the font of what you're doing changes and gets a little bit more voiceover themed as you go. But yeah, I did all the jobs and I loved them too. I loved them. I miss catering a lot. I thought catering was so fun because I love a changing environment, and I also love a story, and I also love chaos a little bit. And that was just every time you would get to catering, you'd have your pre-shift meeting and everything, and you'd be told 7 ways from Sunday how everything needed to go, and inevitably some tragedy would strike. I
I,
don't know what it was, but it just always something always like went caught fire or something. It was hilarious. It was
I
insane.
I have the utmost respect for caterers because not only you're whether it be for a birthday, a wedding, an event, a graduation, like you said, if there's something that's gonna go wrong, something is gonna go wrong. Like, I
Hmm.
imagine even in voice acting too, and the sound
Mm.
engineering you do, there are things that have gone wrong too. You
Oh
know.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. I used to podcast a bit, and there was this one really good interview we got with this couple that were old friends of mine that had this like connection vaguely to Scientology. And they were telling this really wacky story, and they didn't have a microphone, but I had them on the phone, and the phone was wired into the Zoom recorder using this like aux cord. And what captured was the most strange like 8-bit 4-bit audio, terrible crunchy terrible thing. and I did everything that was in my power and every effect and thing that I could do to save it, and it just went up in smoke. It was terrible. So yeah, there's always this space for the ghost in the machine. Back when I was in IT, I would tell folks when they were like freaking out about stuff, I would say, hey, who thought that technology would teach us patience? That didn't tend to make anyone feel any better, but it was a nice little idea, I thought. Because it's true, yeah, stuff will go wrong and you'll have to
Oh,
navigate it. And
wholeheartedly,
you know,
I could attest to that with like editing, you know, podcast, gaming content, or even when I go out to conventions and interview special guests, like there should be some
yeah,
kind of sound audio. So you're like you get home, you hear it's like, okay, we gotta find a way to salvage this as best as we
right.
can.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I do think that like certain companies have come up with some amazing plugins that like pave over that stuff. But yeah, no, there's definitely mishaps on both sides of the glass too. Sometimes you'll be working with a client their internet is struggling, or they have to restart their source connect or whatnot. It's just part of it, and being remote, right? I have to be flexible and good natured and prepared. And yeah, I just do my best in that way, and it's worked out thus far.
I mean, and I imagine, there are times where people don't have the greatest equipment, so it's going to take a
Mm.
little bit. I mean, I imagine you started out with, the simplest, cheapest equipment before you suddenly, were able to get the better sounding quality equipment.
Yeah, I had a blue baby bottle and I had a scarlet solo. And the reason I selected the baby bottle was it sounded cool. The name sounded cool, and I had a friend that had a bluebird that he liked. And then I got the scarlet because it was decently reviewed, but also the blue plus the red in my mind made indigo for the indigo thief. So I was like, oh, it's a sign from above, so that's how I started out. And I was on a laptop that I had traded my grandma for. I traded her an iPad, and it had like 4 gigabytes of RAM. Like, it was a terrible laptop. It would like crash all the time and all this stuff and make loud fan noises. Even as late as maybe like 3 years ago. I had this gaming laptop that I was working off of. I work off of a tower now, but I was working on a gaming laptop, and the fan broke, and it was so loud that I had to put the laptop on the other side of the room, outside the booth, in a pillow fort, and that uh there's a game called Blue Protocol that was like supposed to come out, and then got canceled and then got purchased and whatnot. But on IMDb, I'm still credited as the narrator. And so that was how we recorded some of the Blue Protocol stuff, was in that session. So uh it was a high stakes scenario, and again, had to be flexible and roll with the punches. But now I'm grateful to have equipment that's a bit more reliable. Yeah, a lot more reliable, rather.
Oh, I mean, sure, imagine it's great to have better equipment. I mean, I've seen videos of voice actors and everything have like their own like they buy these like sound booths. You can like buy sound booths
Yep.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Like like I would even like my concern is like where can I find the space for one of those?
Yeah, they're crazy. It's basically taking a room and making it into a smaller room. And we contemplated that, making the move to this house that we're in right now. But um something that I find so elegant is if you can actually treat a full room, right? And you have airflow and you have more space to walk around, and it can be multi-purpose. And we wanted this room to also function as a game room. And so instead, for I think 5% of the expense of one of the booths, but 5,000% of the effort and market research and skill, we were able to sound treat this room. And I'm so happy that we did. It's so great to have walking around space.
Oh, it's
But
always a
yeah,
plus.
those booths are great. They're really powerful. And some days when I have noisy neighbors that I have to put my custom designed window blocks in to shut out, it'd be nice to just walk into a little smaller room.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And I imagine like now, I imagine you were voicing during COVID, where a lot of voice
Mhm.
actors were had to like record from home because they
Yeah.
couldn't go to the studio.
Hmm.
What was that, if you're able to, what was that like
Yeah.
recording during COVID?
I think that it opened a lot of unique opportunities for people, for folks like myself that were in the kind of upper echelon indie record from home space. We were remote ready, and that was allowed productions to continue and uninterrupted. And so I think a lot of folks that were in my tier were able to rise during that period and get new opportunities and build their resumes and build their brands in a way that is still clearly like very very present and very that effect is still felt. I got signed by my agents during that time. I started doing video games around that time. It changed my life, and that was it. Also kind of pushed me out of the nest with that final flower shop job. Was I remember I was one day I was at the shop, and then all of a sudden on the news it was that New York City was shutting down, and I was unemployed, and I had to figure it out. And so in that pressure cooker of that time, and in New York City, which became the COVID capital of the world
Oh,
for a number of months,
I
right?
remember a lot of places shut down. A lot of just everything was like, I know a lot of people were afraid. It's like, it's what's going to happen now.
Yeah. And it opened it, but it did open this door to remote talent internationally. And we got to work on projects like Prince of Tennis U17 World Cup with people from all over the country, the world and the country, playing roles that were associated with their nationality. That was like a kind of groundbreaking experience and a groundbreaking project in that way. And a lot of those doors remained open to me to work remote, that previously would be completely closed. And so I do consider that time was extremely challenging, and it was a international tragedy, and the echoes of it persist through today. However, I owe a lot of my current opportunities and life to how I responded in that time, and how other people responded to me. Yeah.
Well, you already answered my question of what kind of impact what kind of impact this kind of work has had on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, yeah, I mean, it had a negative impact on a lot of people, but through time, with remote, for work, I mean, I consider voice acting work too.
Hmm.
It seems like it helped a lot of people, I mean, yeah, it sucked
It did.
for schools, but I imagine after COVID and everything, what was it like going back to like the studios to record for anime and gaming?
Yeah, I mean, 99% of my work is done fully remote. I work in person on special occasions or for the right projects or if requested. And I can manage it because I found that expanded my opportunities. There's been many clients that are very high profile that have offered to record me remote that I decided to visit in person because I just want to shake their hand and I want to celebrate this project and really enjoy the experience together. um I There's a local studio in town that's really awesome that uh we leveraged to be able to record this exciting game that's coming out later this year. And It was a fun recording process because we had like a series of microphones that you had to wear in order to do the game. Like there's like a one on your hat and one in your mouth, by your mouth, and there's one on your head. So that was really fun. So for me, honestly, going into studio is kind of like a nice treat, whereas everything else is generally still remote for me. And I do travel more to LA now, to take meetings and do callbacks and hang out with people and do some projects. But by and large, it wasn't like a doors closing, doors opening situation for me, because a majority of my work is still very much remote.
Oh yeah. And I imagine it's easier to do remote than to go to the studio.
Oh, always. They might not like to hear that. If anyone that's seeing this, I love you guys. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I literally walk down the hallway and I'm at work, versus when I'm in LA, and I'll go to, someplace on the coast and, be 45 minutes there, an hour and a half back in traffic. It is a night and day Oh, um, the yeah, it's a night and day situation. And the thing is, though, it's a completely different energy. I love going in for I loved going in for to Bright School for Marvel Rivals, because yeah, you're there with you got your monitor, and you got the amazing Michael Surix running your engineering and directing you, and you're in this booth, and you're in this awesome studio. It gets you that energy, it gets you in that headspace. There is a bit of spin up that's required when I'm at my house. I'm in beautiful Florida, and I'm amongst this bamboo forest outside my window. It takes a bit of more of imagination than it would,
Oh,
all right, you're here, 100%.
oh yeah, and I imagine traveling is also great too because you get to go to these different states,
Hmm.
whether it be for voicing or conventions, which I'm sure is
Hmm.
also nice to go to conventions and have people,
Yeah.
say recognize you as their favorite character that you voiced in for other a web series, video game, anime, stuff like that.
Yeah, oh, it's a gift. It really is a gift. I love travel. This year, I maybe overdid it this year. I've gone to, it's funny how I can sneak up on you. My wife does some really exciting work in the immersive experience field, and immersive design. So that work has brought us out to London this year. So I got to go there for the first time since I was a little boy. I got to go to Peru for the very first time this year, New York, New Orleans, Los Angeles, a bunch of times, San Diego. The gift of it all is not lost on me. And I am just in absolute awe and gratitude just constantly. And I mean, wonderful people like yourself reaching out and wanting to talk about stuff that
Oh.
I like talking about is a privilege. It is. I am always happy to do it.
And I can imagine it takes a lot out of you too, whether it be going to a different state or country for, recording for a couple lines, or then going
Hmm.
to a con that's like, 2 to 4 days. And I
Hmm.
imagine it can take a lot out of you. So once you get home, it's like, okay, now it's time to relax and everything as much as
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah, I have this bad thing where I get overexcited and get sucked into the world of the con, and I get really sick when I come back home. This happened both cons this year. So I went
Oh,
to
good old con crud is what they call it.
yes, the con crud. Yes, I went to VO Atlanta, which I adore, this year, and I came back and got so sick. And then yeah, from SDCC, I went right back into the thick of things, and I was like, oh, my voice is sounding kind of weird, and wow, I have zero energy, and I think I'm actually
God.
actively sick.
Oh, geez,
Um,
from
but yeah.
so going from San Diego Comic-Con to the one in Atlanta, that's just like, and I imagine there have been times where like you're constantly on the road for voiceover work or for conventions before like you can actually go home and relax.
Yeah, or I have like a couple days and then I have to go. Like I think I think I did, maybe it was via Atlanta, and then I was home for one day, and then I had to go to, I didn't have to go. I got to go to London. I think it was, it was like something like, and I was talking to a very decorated voice actor the other day, and they said that I think they'd been to 37 cons in the last year.
Jeez.
And so I'm not quite looking forward to, I don't really want to do that. But maybe 10 would be really,
Oh,
10 would be lovely, but 37,
oh,
I think I
jeez.
wouldn't know who I was by the third.
Oh,
But yeah, it's that it's a gift. It takes a lot of energy. It's a privilege, but at the same time, yeah, it is a lot of work. And you have to, I'm learning to take better care of myself and stay better hydrated, and treat myself to some rest. It's a balancing act for sure, because you want to do as much as you can, and we love this work, and that's why we do it, and that's why we push ourselves so hard. And but now I'm realizing, as I'm approaching my mid 30s, I need to start, I need to keep my finger on the pulse a little bit better as to how
oh no,
I'm feeling.
I completely, someone who's in their, mid 30s as well. It takes a lot out of you. I mean, it's just like you got to realize, okay, we need to slow it down and not overdo it, or we
Yeah.
can like end up in a hospital or something.
Yeah, exhaustion, right? Like so the story of Seth MacFarlane after like season 2 of Family Guy or 3 of Family Guy because he was doing everything himself, a lot of stuff himself rather. He was hospitalized for
Yeah,
exhaustion.
I
Yeah,
remember. I
it
remember
can
hearing. I
happen.
remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Now, what are the similarities and difference between voicing in a game compared to voicing in like an anime? Because I know
Yeah, it's
they're
a
like
great question.
there are similarities, but there's also difference because video games you're like doing multiple lines, not just for dialogue, but also like other dialogue as well.
Yeah, so for anime, you are always dubbing, right? So you're always localizing the energy and the sound of, and often the voice print of an actor who has gotten to make those beautiful choices and shape the character before you. Sometimes I think great anime performances find a way to honor that, but also make it their own. Um, Everything's about timing, right? Timing and anime can get pretty intense. It depends on the types of characters you play. I tend to play pretty contemplative older characters, which I really like. Not like a lot of people going Super Saiyan. With games though, you're always going Super Saiyan at some point. We call it efforts, or exerts. And you'll do that at the end of your session, and it'll probably be, 20, hopefully under 30 minutes of screaming and dying and doing all these different things. Um, uh, and I tell students that video games are often about life and death, right? The stakes are really high. If the player doesn't play the character correctly, they die, and you have to bring that desperation and that energy and that presence of mind to your character the entire game. And that can be really, it takes a certain type of stamina, and certainly takes a certain type of commitment. So I feel like video games, across the board are very extremely vocally athletic. Kari Walgren talked about this, who does a ton of
Oh, she
animation
she
stuff.
has she has like a long list. I've seen her IMDb
Mhm.
credits. Just like you're just like you keep on scrolling. It's insane how much
Yeah,
she's done.
she's the goat. She's amazing. But she did recently on Instagram come out and do a post about how hard video game voice acting is and how challenging it is, even for someone like her that's like super decorated and an animation superstar. Doing Mortal Kombat 1 was extremely draining, and it's really physically taxing. So it takes a lot of proper training, it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of vocal health to be able to do video games consistently. And yeah, it is always a marathon, but we are marathoners and it's what we do. And it's a blessing.
I mean, I've played a lot of video games over the years, and I'm just like, I just can imagine recording not just, like with dialogue when you're getting hurt, you're dying, but there's also like, especially, for example, games like Mass Effect or something where you have
Mm,
like different dialogue. So like, I can't imagine
yeah,
being, like
branching dialogue.
yeah, Jennifer Hale having to like record each of those different
Right.
dialogues, and each dialogue has its own tone. Like I just can't imagine like
It's
doing that.
really, yeah, it's really something. And you mentioned, Jennifer Hale, I think is as good as it gets, absolute number one. Fabulous, fabulous talent. And just a warm and generous person as well. But yeah, it's extremely dynamic, and something that I really loved about, the honor of getting to be a part of the upcoming Fortune's Weave is, we worked on that game for a good long time, and I found like I was moving through life at the same time that my character Bakar was moving through life, and I was getting older and he was getting older, um and that was like a really holistic and very in-depth experience, getting to kind of play these different phases of his life as I was living my own. It was very expansive as an artist to get to work on that. And but yeah, on one hand it's very challenging and complex, but on the other hand it's very challenging and complex, and how wonderful.
Oh yeah. And I have to give props to these actors who, who are like, getting older and they can still voice a young
Mm,
character like Yuri Lowenthal as
yeah.
Spider-Man or Jennifer Hale or Kerry
Mm-hmm.
Walgren, you know, like I give props
Very
to
strong.
yeah, I give props to like that they can still voice these characters that they voiced 20 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
you can kind of hear the difference. And then you got like The Simpsons, for example, where you can really tell like an actor who's like 70, 80 trying to voice a character that's like 40.
That, and what a gift it was for them to be a part of a project that successful, right? Where you have this project that's something that's also really cool and very rare, but very cool that it's possible in this art form that you can voice a character that's so legacy that it kind of becomes your whole thing, or at least it like becomes this huge uh this lifelong journey for you. You know, that's so so lovely. And I, you know, on the very, very, very micro version of that, I've just now had enough characters that are like I reprise the roles and get to step back into the characters after a period of time. Like we mentioned EDF World Brothers earlier. And you know, I get to come back for EDF World Brothers 2 when I was like 3 years later. I was a very different actor, and it was um a very unique experience to get to step back into those roles. I can't imagine what that would feel like 25 years, you know, onward.
Oh yeah. Now, one game I want to talk about, Roll, you voiced Marvel Rivals. You voiced Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. What was that like voicing such an iconic badass of a character that's been in Marvel for a very long time, has had like numerous voice actors, but I
Yeah.
think he's only had like a few video game appearances.
You dispatched Dracula and recovered my Nornstone. For that you have my thanks. But your vigilante antics have violated the law. So I'm afraid you're under arrest.
Yeah, he's had a handful of video game appearances. He's I think been in like maybe 4 video games. And it was surreal. You know, I remember getting that. I like to say like big things come in small packages because I got that booking and I had a code name and I asked my team, I was like, is this really that? You know, is this really, you know, because I had a, you know, you have a theory, you know, they describe what the game is. It's a
Hmm
6v6 arena fighter. It's Marvel. You're like, I know what that is. Um, it was coming out at the same time as Born Again season 2. You know, I feel like Vincent D'Onofrio has I think I described like he like cleared out these mine shafts of this character from all these decades of digging in this character, and thus those of us that follow after him can find these like diamonds and gems and jewels so much easier and more readily because he has done so much of the work and talked about this character so eloquently for so long. It was surreal. It was surreal because the thing is my colleagues are like my voiceover like heroes and like my people I've looked up to my whole career. You know, there's a lot of critical role people in this game. You know, there's Brittany Cox in this game, Laura Post, who had directed. I went to SDCC and met Laura, and Laura had directed me in something a couple weeks prior. I was like, "You're my mentors. You are my leaders." And now we are colleagues, and that is quite a mind, you know, a mind f, you know.
Oh yeah,
But
no.
the you know, and then not to mention the legacy of the character and getting to do the research
Oh
and
yeah,
you
no,
know,
definitely.
reading you know, reading the Spider-Man Amazing Spider-Man 50 through 53 arc, you know, where he debuts the cane and um getting to hear people's opinion of the character and what they expect of the character and watching Roscoe Lee Brown's performance in the show and all this stuff, you know, it is this wonderful conglomeration of love and passion, this
Mm.
character and mythology. And so it's just such a tremendous surreal honor to get to walk in the footsteps of the greats
Oh,
as Wilson Fisk.
oh, most definitely. I mean, I think what prior to this one, I think last video game appearance that Kingpin made was in the Spider-Man PS4, PS5 games, and that was voiced by Travis Willingham.
Travis Willingham, who's in Marvel Rivals as
Oh
Thor, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So
no.
yeah, to to even touch on something that Travis has done, let alone, you know, get to be in a game with Travis, was surreal. And I knew I had to do it extremely correctly because I wanted to pay respect to what how he had popularized the character and what he had done. And yeah, it's continues to be a real like pinch me kind of moment in my career.
Is it always easy, or what's it like? I mean, I know I asked this, but like difficulty wise, is it always easy or hard to try to capture that voice that someone had previously voiced, years prior, that someone else voiced?
I find if you have it, you have it, and if you don't have it, you can't really fake it. That's my approach. I'm not an expressly like a impressionist, I would say. Um, Basically, how the Kingpin voice developed in this iteration for me was um, hearing, Vincent D'Onofrio's work and filtering that through my system and seeing what came out and feeling it in my instrument. Okay, yeah, I can do this. And well, then what seasonings do I want to add to it, etc. So if you're not forcing it, then it's sustainable, right? Like with the Age of Mythology stuff, it's like, yeah, I sound like Daniel Riordan and I sound very similar when we're regularly speaking as well. Um, uh, but if I were to force it, if I were to like try and really make something work that wasn't supposed to work, then I think it'd be rather stressful. But I got lucky here.
Right. And I imagine there have been times where you've asked other voice actors on these projects for some advice, especially these actors who've been doing this for like 10, 20 plus
Mhm.
years too.
Yeah. Well, and we were like backstage or doing press for at SDCC, and yeah, I was basically like spiritually sitting at the feet of these more experienced actors, right? Like Eric Braw, Laura Post, Brittany Cox, Josh Keaton dropped in for a bit off of the Tokon panel and stuff. And yeah, just shooting the breeze with them and um talking about life and hearing about who they were as people, and getting to become friends with Jennifer Sun Bell doing our partner signing at the beginning of Comic-Con and arranging all that stuff, that is priceless to me, because I just so admire these people. And it is a treat to get to be their peer and collaborate with them in this way.
Yeah, and I imagine you've learned a lot. I mean, hell, you have some of these older voice actors like Steve Bloom and like one of them, like the modern voice for Tweety Bird, who are like having these voiceover classes to help with the next generation. Because these actors know, yeah, we're not going to be here for long. Our voices could go out someday, but we want to make sure you have the proper tools that we didn't have back then.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm in voiceover education myself. I teach a class called Game Mode over at Closing Credits that I am very proud of.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm very proud of. And My philosophy is I try and start people on like year 4 of my journey, right? And it was around like year 7, year 8 that things started really clicking for me, and working in my favor as far as momentum. But yeah, I feel like that's the spirit of true artistry is mentorship, and it's like what Yoda says, where he says, uh, the this is the let me see here. I don't want to misquote Yoda on a show.
We don't judge on here. I mean,
We are he says, well, we are what they I think he says we are what they go beyond. This is the burden of all great masters. And it's one of my favorite Yoda quotes. I know it's not the most popular Star Wars movie, but um I think there's something to that, and I think that it's something that we owe. Everything is borrowed in life, right? No one gets out of this alive,
oh yeah,
so
no.
I have a great passion for voiceover education and mentorship, and I really admire my colleagues that share that
Oh yeah, I
passion.
mean, even like your most seasoned voice actors, they once had to voice a character that was voiced by someone else, years prior to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we're not dealing with like with legacy characters. No one is like the original iteration of it, and
Mm.
so how do you step into that? And I had the privilege of meeting Joe Achman at SDCC, who's the current voice of Jiminy Cricket. And he shared in that reverence and shared in that I think there's a humility that needs to be maintained when we do walk in the footsteps of giants, and there are people that have crafted these characters and invented these characters, and the fans have loved these characters their whole lives. My grandmother had a whole, I mean, it's not a great voiceover example, but my grandma had a whole room filled with Snoopy growing up. She loved Snoopy, like these animated characters, they resonate with people, and people take deep identity from that, and you become a big part of your character becomes a big part of their life. And there's a responsibility and a reverence that needs to be carried with that. Not so much Wilson Fisk. I hope that people don't have a kingpin room, but there's plenty of incredible merch comics, A, B, and C, the new Magic the Gathering cards. There's plenty of space for him in your home, for sure. And I am so grateful that people resonate with him.
Nice. I mean, and I think even people need to know that, yes, it's someone else voicing that character. And like I imagine, like you said, did you talk to Bill, who was the original voice of Hadriel, or do you ever get the chance to talk to him about what it was like voicing his, prior?
I tried to get like as mentioned, I tried to run into him at SDCC to do it in person, but I think I should do it digitally. I have been meaning to reach out to him and chat with him about it because he left behind such a legacy, and quite frankly, it was such a treat to step into Hadriel, but also I'm not under auspices that people, that it's like a Tyrael type character,
Oh yeah, no.
and so I don't want to take up too much space or too much of people's time and stuff.
Right.
But I did try and get in touch with Daniel Riordan. And Daniel, if you or anyone that knows Daniel Riordan is seeing this, please connect me to Daniel Riordan. I would love to talk to him about Arcantos and Age of Mythology, because it was such an intimate experience, getting to recreate that performance. But no, I'm always open to it, and I just feel like it's sometimes a delicate balance because you don't want to be like the young buck that knocks on someone's door and you
Right,
don't know the
right,
full
right, right,
story.
right, right,
But
right.
I would love to talk to Bill. Would love to talk to Daniel because I admire them so deeply.
Oh yeah, I mean, their games came out many years ago, and then doing a whether it's a continuation or a remaster remake,
Mhm.
yeah. Let's see here. We kind of talked about conventions, but what's it been like going to conventions and having people recognize you as their favorite character?
Yeah, it's a newer thing for me. It's a newer thing. I have just SDCC under my belt, and then I'm going to Fanverse in Fresno, December 12th to 13th. Which I think actually Bill might be going to that too. Bill Roper might be going to. If he is, I'm totally going to. We got to make a video together or something. I hate drills. But it's surreal. I came from the land of the theater, right? So like theater, even at any level, you do a show and then you go out in the audience and you shake everyone's hands and everyone, is like, oh, that was sweet. That was good. You get feedback. You hear applause after a dance number. You hear applause at the end of the show. You know how you made people feel. And it's kind of crazy that at this work, you have to get to a certain level before you can even get to hear how you made people feel. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
Like when
no.
people, like I'll hear nothing for 12 years of my career, and then I'll talk to someone and they'll be like, oh, this character, I adore this character, is my favorite. And I'm like, oh wow, that's insane. That's wonderful. I love that. I thank you for telling me that. That means so much to me because yeah, we work in isolation, I'm in a soundproof room and I act on the phone essentially. And then the game comes out and I play it with some friends maybe or by myself, and then I get back to work. And so it's so nice to have that loop broken up by interaction with people. And that's why I always like to, do these interviews and talk with people because I'm curious as to how people are experiencing the work. I'm curious as to how people feel because it's for you guys, it's for people to enjoy. And excuse me, I never want to get disconnected from that. And so the cons has been just such a nice outlet for me to start to get plugged back into that and just share space and spend time with people who like the same things I like.
So one more question, because you kind of brought it up, and I don't think we talked much about it. So you started also in like stage productions and theater. What was
Mhm.
that like, starting that and then transitioning into voice acting and everything?
Yeah, so I think like theater and stage is so big, right? And I think voice acting, particularly video game acting now, is very cinematic. It's very small, it's very subtle, it's very like watching a movie. And it's very like acting in a movie. And so being able to rein that in and also being able to translate things that would normally be achieved with a gesture or a costume into the voice is its own thing. Like how do we what does a cape sound like, in a microphone? What does someone walking away haughtily, sound like during a line as opposed to just doing it on stage? So bridging that gap was challenging, took many years, but I now have a passion for helping other people bridge that gap, and I'm so glad I did. But it's like the stage is so broad and big and expressive and visual, and then how do you translate that into something truly auditory?
And I feel like stage, because a lot of voice actors over the years have started off on stage
Hmm.
or some type of, performance in front of a big crowd. Advice for that, like someone who may want to get into stage acting but not sure how to go about it.
Yeah, I think I would look to your community, like it's very likely you have a community theater, or you have a local scene study class. Scene study is where you study like a scene from a play for a number of weeks with a scene partner and you get feedback from your acting coach. I think that format of learning the theater and learning acting, I think, is probably my favorite. It was what I came up doing in conservatory in college. I think that there's a lot more opportunity around people than they are aware of. I know because my family ran one of those theaters and I worked in those theaters and I lived by those theaters all my life. And there's exciting work happening on a small, quiet scale all around you. And so just reaching out and getting curious and looking online. And I think you'll find some wonderful communities under the right bush where you can really grow and get to flex that muscle.
And I'm sure it was nice to grow, but you pretty much were born into this in a sense.
Yes, it is the family business. Yeah. Yeah. When and theater people raised me, my mom's theater friends from Broadway and from regional theater growing up, like they would like live with us for periods of time and work on projects and would help her direct projects and live in our guest room. Like they taught me how to shave, and they helped me learn how to drive, I was raised by theater folk. I was raised by theater people, and I fell madly in love with all of the whole lifestyle. And I'm so grateful that I was able to make that my life. It's a real gift.
So, and I imagine you owe credit to that growing up. It's like you
Mm.
started out with, you were born into this line. Basically, you were born into this line of work, and I imagine it's helped you over the years. Like you always know where your roots are from and everything.
Mm. Yeah, it is like my work is like a constant kind of homage back to where I came from, and it does feel like coming home. It is cozy, and I am just yeah, I love it. I'm happy as a pig in mud.
And I imagine it's also nice to have the support of your wife, who's also into this, and I know you
Yeah.
support her too, and her because you guys, pretty much do the same thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's does acting and producing, and we're out here in Florida, and she's done some wonderful interfacing with theme parks and works with private immersive experience design firms and et cetera.
Ooh.
And yeah, she just does such exciting work, and it's so great that we have this common language. You're entirely right. And this understanding, it's an extremely eccentric life. I will come in here, close the door, and all of a sudden maybe I'm Grandpa Tony that day, and I'm screaming as a little, squirrel in his fix-it shop, for Max and Maple. or I'm doing Hot Wheels and I'm growling and screaming in that way, you know. So I'm so grateful for her support and her understanding. And it of course helps because she does the same thing, you know. So yeah, it's that's another thing is living with a voice actor is also no cakewalk, I imagine, you know, because it's so wacky and kooky and zany all the time in here.
Oh yeah. One more question before we end. Well, two more. What kind of like methods do you have for vocal training to soothe your voice? Because I know there are sometimes
Mm,
you're
yeah.
yelling, you're screaming, and there's a chances of throat bleed. Like, how do you go about taking care of your throat and your voice to make sure you don't like almost potentially lose
Get
it?
injured. Yeah, I took a class with Darcy Smith a number of years ago, and he specializes in high intensity vocals, like screaming, getting set on fire, getting shot, all this stuff. And I learned a lot with that. And you know, there's different classes and specialists that can empower you to be able to do high intensity work, but I think something like we touched on a while back was programming in enough breaks, programming in enough rest, not overextending yourself when you're already on your last leg. I think that is a bit of discipline that I've learned, and I've also learned it the hard way at times. And I think like knowing that you have to stay hydrated, that's regular, you know, that's pretty standard. I use a nebulizer. A lot of people use nebulizers like saline nebulizer, like vocal mist. Doing straw work, straw phonation, singing straw, all that stuff, like resistance voice warm-up work, all that stuff can help strengthen the very real muscle that is, right, you know, the vocal folds and your diaphragm and all the instruments you're using to be able to execute these effects. um and like you said, you know, acknowledging the risk, acknowledging that you can, you know, lose these things and that you can permanently damage these things, and giving the proper reverence and respect that, you know, we are vocal stunt people in a lot of ways. And finding, you know, finding your balance. And I think too, like I said, like I strive to play like lower key characters these days, like older characters, you know, mentors. Maybe they lose their mind a little bit at the end of the game for a little bit, but but for the most part they tend to be pretty chill. And that suits, yeah, that suits my vibe.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think people need to realize that voice actors are putting, you know, they're putting their body through the ringer. Yeah, well, you know, actors on screen are putting their body through a lot, especially in like action films, horror films,
Hmm.
whatever, where they
Yeah.
could potentially get hurt or, you know, in Brendan Fraser's case, how he pretty much was like t technically dead for a couple seconds during the hanging scene
Mm.
in the first Mummy movie.
Yeah.
Voice actors, you know, they're putting a lot of strain on their voice too.
Yeah. Yeah. When there's people too that are like working at like extremely busy clip, like that have like sometimes 5 sessions a day, and they'll have like, you know what I mean? Like they can get extremely busy. And you know, I'm doing a fair number of sessions in a week, but not necessarily at that clip on purpose because I am really trying to be extra deliberate about when I get rest.
Oh yeah, no. So last question, any last minute advice or just anything else you would like to throw out there for those who are listening and are watching this episode?
Yeah, I would say, you know, y you'll hear a lot that the arts, and particularly like voice acting or on camera, are oversaturated. And I hope that you hear that and know that all that really means is that it's very competitive. And if you want to do it at a super high level, that you know, it's going to take ask a lot of you, but it can be done. And our industry is richer because you are a part of it, because your unique lived experience is a part of it. We are better because of you. And we are more because of you. So please, like, don't discount your lived experience. Don't feel like the odds are stacked against you. Understand that you can work at all levels in this stuff. You know, you could be in the indie space, student space, you could be, you know, etc. So know that there is a space for you, and if you want to find it, you can find it.
I That's some really good, solid advice, and I think people need to take that to heart. Yeah, like, yeah, times can be tough, times can be troubling, but just know, like, there's always that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
And somebody's got to do it. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to do it. And so many times I think like, if I get a job, I'm not necessarily thinking, well, I am the best guy in the world for this job. Maybe the best guy in the world took the day off, or the best guy in the world wasn't interested in that job, and then I got that job. There's a lot of different things out of our control to the positive effect that open up opportunities for you and can shape your life. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I encourage people to go for it.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Last but not least, if you're able to, where can people find you on social media if they want to stay up to date with like whatever
Yeah.
cons or whatever your next project that you can't share is? Because I know voice actors always have to be careful of what they say their next role is and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm over at Instagram mostly these days, which is Chris, the letter O, the animal cow, and then UH. So Chris Okawa. I'm sometimes on Twitter just for just like general announcements. And yeah, I'm looking forward to creating more content, doing more sketches and all this stuff with my colleagues at cons, now that I'm in the circuit, and would love to see you guys there. If you're interested in voiceover education, you can also go to chrisokawa.com/contact and join our mailing list. We have a lot of free and accessible
Ooh.
offerings every single month. So I would love to meet you guys and get to do some fun classes with you.
Nice. Well, again, Chris, thank you for taking the time out of your day. Because again,
My pleasure,
oh,
Wayne.
I know. Over there, it's way later in the day. Over here, it's like it just like hit 12 o'clock not long
Yeah,
ago.
lunchtime.
Oh yeah, no, I don't get lunch, but you know, thank you so much.
Thank you, Wayne.
Oh, of course. And as always, I'm Wayne the Unknown. Until next time, thank you for listening, and as always, thank you for watching. Don't get to like, forget to like, subscribe, and also shout out to those who support the channel.
Thanks, guys.